Hey guys, we're back working on the Pinto project, and I apologize for the wind noise in both this video and the last video. There's not much I can do about it with it being spring in Maine. It's just the weather's really kind of out of control, but you can see we got the Pinto frame setting up here. I did bolt the rear bumper on like I mentioned in my last video, but today's attention is going to be on sort of dismantling this puppy over here. This is the Joyner 250 liquid cooled Chinese ATV. I actually found the plate on it when I removed the rear fender. Let's get the VIN number and everything on it, but obviously the engine's not original. This thing's had a hard life. I'm looking at some of the welds and they're definitely a little cracked here and there. Not super bad, but definitely not built like you would think an ATV would be. But I think today's plan is going to be to get front suspension mounted to the Pinto frame, and it actually looks like it'll be fairly easy. I think what I'm going to do is actually the bracket here on the front, which I'm assuming used to hold the old radiator. It was holding the battery when I got it. But this bracket is actually the same width outside dimensions as this cross member is on the inside dimensions. So this actually, that bracket might actually set right up underneath the front bumper plate there and just make this swap really easy. And then the frame rails theoretically could run right through the back. I don't know if the steering is going to get in the way, if the shocks are going to get in the way. I don't know how much clearance issues there's going to be. But I'm going to try to remain the stock geometry on the four-wheeler suspension on the Pinto frame. So when I cut this thing, I'm probably going to cut it up here to try to keep this distance true. The back is a little trickier because there's a little bit more going on, so I got to kind of figure out if I'm going to just weld some temporary metal in right there, or if I'm just going to take this whole front piece right off. I'd rather not do that, but I might have to, at least temporarily. And then once I get it sort of locked into the frame, I can cut all that extra shit off and sort of build my own bracketry. So we're playing with a couple of my favorite tools today. 4.5-inch cutoff wheel and my Sawzall. Probably going to use mostly Sawzall just because the blades are a little less disposable. And I'm just going to hack the friggin' front end right off of this thing right now. So I'm not going to wait around anymore. Let's do this. So I got her blocked up off the ground here, and you can hear the bearings. Definitely need some oil in there, grease, whatever. But you can also see the brakes actually work pretty good. And I love that every time I click the record button, the wind blows. When I shut the record, or I turn the camera off, the wind stops blowing. Awesome. Blade's a little long there. I think I hit the shock a tiny bit, but I didn't mar it up at all. Alright, so I got the front cut there, and I disconnected the tops of my shocks, disconnected the ends of my tie rods, and I think what I'm going to do is actually add a piece of steel. This guy here, it's just a scrap piece I found, and I'm going to actually add a support from here to this upper part of the front end right there, so I don't have to take this whole front end where the engine's attached and everything. It'll make it a lot easier in the long run, and then I can decide later whether or not I'm going to cut that out of there and get rid of it, or keep it and use it as a structural part of the frame. I'm not really sure yet, but it definitely makes it a little easier to just tack weld a piece of steel in there rather than cut this whole clusterfuck out of the front end of the four-wheeler. So yeah, gotta tack weld that puppy in. Alright, she's welded in there. Not my best welds, but not my worst. So it's time to cut this front end completely off. Alright, I think it's pretty much free. The only thing that's a question mark in my head right now is whether or not this steering shaft is just going to pop out of this. It's looking like the answer is probably no. Now let me try pulling on it real hard, see what happens. Nope. Feels like we're stuck in with a C-clip or something. Damn it. So after messing with this thing for a few minutes, I cannot figure out how to get the bottom disconnected. So I pulled the handlebars off the top, removed some of the cables. I got to basically unscrew this this bushing that actually holds the steering into the frame, which I'll probably end up reusing this because I think I'm going to end up reusing this steering. I might change the angle a little bit. I'll probably have to shorten it. I'm not really sure. Maybe I won't use it at all, but I do want to save the part. So I'm just going to unbolt this whole thing, and then hopefully this whole thing will just drop right out, steering and all. Alright, well it looks like we're free. I'm just going to drag this behemoth out from under the wheeler. Without taking wires with it. And there she is. It's pretty self-explanatory. Double A arm, coil springs, steering. Tires, brakes, wheels. Alright, so now that we got the front end separated, I've got the Pinto frame kind of mocked up in place. I've got the ATV suspension about a quarter to a half an inch from being fully maxed out in the upwards position. So I am, I think, going to raise this frame up a little bit because it doesn't allow for a lot of up travel before these lower A-arms are going to contact the frame. So if I can get this thing up another inch or two, that'll give me a lot more travel before the A-arms kind of contact the frame. Alright, so what I'm going to end up doing here, I think, is I removed this piece that I was originally going to mount to. I think I'm going to flip it, so it's going to bring me up that extra inch. I'm going to kind of reset it there, but I think first I'm actually going to weld it up under my frame and get that centered, and then figure out where the frame needs to be and then weld it in place. And that'll give me a pretty good zero starting point to get everything kind of mocked. Well, there, she's all welded up. Now we're gonna weld the frame onto the front, I don't even know what you want to call this now, the front suspension frame. I am going to use better steel than just those two little tabs. I just want to get it mounted, and then I'll reinforce everything so it's a hell of a lot stronger than it is. Alright, so it's been a while since we last talked. I've been doing a lot of welding, kind of bracketing, reinforcing, lining stuff up. You can see I got a couple of big pieces of steel. I got square tube steel on the bottom. I think it's a 1.5 inch wide piece that runs across the bottom. That was to keep the basically the level of the ATV front end kind of in line with the frame. And then I added this piece here because I think that's going to end up being an engine mount, and it offers a little bit more support for the frame left to right, and a little bit of upward support for the suspension. On the front end here, I got it all welded up. Not exactly how I thought it was going to go. I ended up changing the method a little bit, but generally is the same. Everything's centered. This thing's got a lot of clearance, and you can see I'm about maxed out upward travel. Granted, the shocks aren't attached yet, so you can see that that's just touching right there. It's a little off on that side, but it's probably because the whole thing isn't even sitting level right now. But it's actually pretty close to where I want to be. I'll show you what we got for travel here in just a second. And it just barely doesn't contact the frame, so I'll probably end up putting some bump stops in, and maybe even some limiting straps, but I'm guessing when I get the shocks mounted properly that the limiting straps won't be necessary. So as you can see, we're doing lots more bracing, welding, things of that nature. I've kind of come to the conclusion, you can see there's some more bracing up here. I'm having a problem where my tie rods, and I even flipped them upside down, I'm still getting a little contact between them and the frame at full flex. You can see they sit above the A-arm there. So I think what I have to do, and I really don't want to do this, and I intentionally added all this bracing, I think I need to cleave here and here and make it so these A-arms and springs and the tie rods can all kind of, basically this chunk of the frame is in the way. This whole piece basically from right here all the way up to that next welded piece. So it is about a 12-inch piece of frame that needs to get removed, and I hate to do it because I kind of wanted to keep the frame, as much of the frame as I possibly could, but I think it's got to go. I think all in all I got everything reinforced enough against other parts of the frame that it will stay structurally okay. Because as you remember, the old four-wheeler had, you know, a lot of structure that came up over the top and attached everything. So a lot of the structural integrity was kind of triangulated up above. So I kind of tried to keep it low. I may have to add some more. I'm not really quite sure yet. You know, only time will tell once I take this thing out and beat it. If I start cracking welds and stuff, then I'll certainly know then. But I think I'm going to sawzall a 12-inch chunk of frame out, which I don't want to do. But I'm going to do it anyway, because I don't think it's gonna work unless I do it. Well, there we go, both pieces cut out. Unfortunately, all that steel kind of wasted. Maybe I can use it somewhere else, I'm not sure. But what's done is done. At least now I get full articulation and steering out of the whole deal, so maybe a little bit more strengthening. I don't know if it's necessary, but I'll probably do something to make it a little stronger. Well, I think that's going to do it for me on this video, but I will leave you with this image. Boom. She is going to be an absolute monster. Got a long way to go, but at least the front suspension piece is just about completed. Just got to mount the shocks. I think a little bit more triangulation of the frame. I think I'm going to run some pieces from, you know, the top to the diagonally down. Probably see it better this way, kind of like that, because there's really not a lot of lateral support in the frame as it stands, but you can see everything's kind of mocked up. Just look at that beast. Absolutely ridiculous. So as always, smash that like button if you like what you see. Leave a comment below, tell me what you think. I'm going to try to keep pressing forward on this thing. I'm going to work on it in my spare time and everything, so hopefully next time you see it I'll get a little bit more done. Nothing too major, but little things, little baby steps, you know. Yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching.